Thompson Productions.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder, for others, in other cases, whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. And then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you. You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. You know, why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you. That was...
And welcome, everybody. This is Tyler Yonke, LPR. We've got a guest tonight. Before we do that, though, Friday, I've got Mary Fagan Keene. It's the grand-niece of some sort to Mary Fagan, the girl that was murdered by a different Lee, Leo. Oh, sorry, that was Leo. Leo Frank. We're going to talk to her. She wrote a book. And then don't forget to subscribe to our Substack. Tyler Yonke does Substack.com. And without any further ado, we're going to bring on tonight's main guest, Lee Enfield of N Block Press. If you follow him on Twitter, it's a charm. Lee, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, what's up, Tyler? How you doing, man?
Good. And I know if there's some issues you've got to put the kids down, just give us the signal. We'll carry on until then. Welcome and thank you for coming back on. You've been on here before. We talked about the Trump. Well, first of all, introduce yourself to everybody. I know everyone knows who you are, but I wonder if you got anything new going on or you want to present whatever it is, let everybody know who you are.
Yeah, no, I'm Lee. I'm a shit poster on Twitter, and I also run a small newsletter that's mostly focused on guns at nblockpress.com, and I'm just happy to be back.
Yeah, and you do podcasts with that as well. I know a lot of them are behind the paywall, but you do put some stuff out there for free as well. What's the gist of that?
Yeah, it's I don't put too much free content out over there, just out of fear of the subhuman masses of free subscribers that are out there on the internet. But yeah, it's probably like 90% paywall stuff, but podcast, newsletter, it's probably like 50-50.
Yeah. Okay. It is your topics on the podcast. Do you fear doxing or just crazy people or why I like your method, keeping it behind the paywall. That's where the people come to help support you. So I get it. What's the main gist there?
Yeah, it's no real particular reason other than it's just time consuming to produce. And you know, it's not. Sometimes it gets a little spicy, but it's nothing too crazy. You know, it's not anything that I don't normally talk about with people who know me or anything. It's not like necessarily a doxing thing or that type of deal. It's just that it's time consuming, and from time to time, some of it is also like higher effort and actually of value. So.
Yeah, go support him there. So, I mean, look, you've been on podcasts for years. You had a podcast that's, I wouldn't say failed, but it's like a lot of them where it's a lot of work and it's not, you're not getting, I imagine it wasn't supporting you to the point where you just quit your other work. So it's kind of something I imagine it's like me. It's like you just enjoy pontificating and blabbering a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things where, you know, you spend enough time with it, it becomes irresponsible to just do it for no money at all. So
yeah,
have something to offset it a little bit.
I totally agree. And this is why the way I do it live, it came about simply because production. If I could do it, have an intro and all this, then I don't have to put extra work into it. And then my wife's not complaining. Quick question. So do you tell, like, if you go to your kid's soccer game or whatnot, do they look at you and go, oh, he's got a podcast?
Yeah, so it's not like there are people obviously in my life that are like in the loop on it, but I'm actually I don't know if this is ironic or not. I just prefer not to talk about politics with people that I like in like my real life circle, right? Like maybe that's a little counterintuitive, but like I enjoy the shit posting side and being like combative and argumentative with people, and but only if it's like in that realm, like Twitter or a podcast format or something where it's like appropriate and everyone kind of knows what they're getting into. It's I basically see it as like choosing to remain friends with people who are good people but are maybe normies or not quite as read into things or something like that. So it's just like a kind of an air gap, so that I don't have to consistently be arguing with people that I don't really have any interest in arguing with.
Or explaining. I mean, because you know things pretty in depth, right? And so I think actually what you're describing is kind of the norm. I was on who was with Nephilim Death Squad guys, and they're like, "Are you happy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because I do this on this pipeline here on the internet, and then I go and just have normal life." And I think that's kind of a key to a lot of us. I don't know if I'm normie. I know someone said, "Hey, you're going on this show, but he's gay and retarded." That guy got a follow from me. So yeah. But I mean, you know what I mean?
It's like a question of etiquette, I think. Like I really don't like how, I mean, just in our lifetimes, like neither of us are like young guys. I think you're maybe a few years ahead of me, but
it's like several.
A crazy amount. But I mean, I grew up on like 28.8, 56K, like internet, where the internet was basically a very separate place from your like real life meat space type of environment. And I kind of lament that everything is rolled into one now, where the internet is just this oppressive protocol layer where like everything has to be online, everything has to be maximally scrutinized within the public view. And so I like arguing with people. I like, talking about current events or politics or guns or whatever. But so does everyone. And without sounding like a shithead, like I don't want to talk with like, like retards from high school or just like normies, and just rehash like very low quality interactions in a super high stakes way, right? Like I don't want to, have to worry about whether somebody from like, an old job is disavowing me because of views about whatever, like Israel versus Palestine or something like that. Like these are topics that are fun to discuss if it's like, if that's the order of the day, right? Like if you're in a realm where people can have those conversations and it can get heated, but everyone understands that like you're just hashing out ideas or, it doesn't really mean anything. But I think it's wiser to avoid wasting a lot of time with people who actually take it too seriously or think that it actually matters, I guess. So in a way, it's like a vice. It purely is just something that's enjoyable, but is not actually super productive. But there's a big death drive for a lot of people in America who think that like their political views actually matter very much, or that it something like that. And so I think it's important to avoid actually talking with those people in real life. Like you just don't have enough time in your life to waste it with people like that. It's just better to remain friends with them in the capacity that is appropriate, either just like, okay, at work, or it's like, yeah, man, we went to high school together. Cool. That was 20 years ago. Like, I don't want to be enemies on Facebook with you. I'm just going to say Merry Christmas once a year or something like that.
Look, sage advice from a relative. Look, because you made a comment that you grew up and you started describing internet speeds, and I'm like, I literally grew up. You posted this online, the Davy Crockett photo. I mean, it was earlier than I was born, but it was on TV when I was young. That's the kind of stuff we were watching. It was Disney was every Sunday night, and you got to come and watch that, or Sunday Night Baseball. So it was, things were a little bit different back in my day, but. By the way, that post blew up.
Yeah, people like that, I think.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Okay, let's get into a few things. You've written, and by the way, you're not an attorney, right?
No, I'm not.
You're not, and this is where I want to applaud you. That you write some stuff about guns, and you'll do it with the legal aspects in there, and I love it because you dumb it down. I don't want to say dumb it down, but you're high level yet very accessible. And I just want people to understand that you don't have to go to attorneys to necessarily interpret things. People can just read judgments out there and rulings and can figure this stuff out. And you've done that very well. So I want to commend you for that. Another one, who's the guy I listened to? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've learned a lot of things from non-attorneys. So before we get into some of that, though, I wanted to talk to you. You'd come on here. We had talked about Trump, the assassination. That really went nowhere, it seems. This one with Charlie Kirk, at least we don't have a dead body. So there's can be some, as far as, the shooter, so to speak, where they just then wrap it up. But when it happened and the initial things that took place, Tyler Robinson gets arrested. What was your take initially and now? And maybe just even walk us through if you've made different changes. I know there's a wide scope, but I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, so when that happened, like my take on it is that it's a tragic event. I think.
Yeah, of course.
Charlie Kirk was like outside of, I guess the realm of like content that I would typically have produced or like consumed, I guess. And so like I would be lying if I said that, before this I was like #1 Charlie Kirk content consumer or something like that. Not because I had anything against the guy, but mainly because his beat, so to speak, was like the college circuit, and it's I'm aged out of that. So he's someone that, I mean, obviously he was very prominent, and TPUSA is like a large organization, and so his stuff was always going on like the periphery, but I wasn't like up on like the day-to-day stuff that he was doing or like tuning in every time he had content going on. But with that said, I think what happened is terrible, and maybe shame on me, but I think he was doing a lot of important work that was good work, that he didn't really have my eye on, I guess. And so I think it's terrible. I think it exposed some pretty big problems at like a fundamental level in our country, as far as like a public reaction and a public response. I have not, I'm actually not like a huge conspiracy theory guy, and so I don't have any hot takes about motive or like, obviously this has turned into like a thing with Candace Owens and others where it's a question of, was he like assassinated by Israel, or was there some type of foreign interest, or was it, I don't know I literally have no opinion on that stuff because I don't really care. I think what happened was bad, and it pretty much stops there. I guess, like, I know it's not really what people want to hear, just because it's not that exciting, but I think it's entirely plausible that a weird guy with evil worldviews would shoot someone in the neck that they disagreed with. Like the prospect that, like my understanding of the alleged shooter, and I'm using alleged because you have to, because he's alive, not because I think there's like a conspiracy angle to it, but the alleged shooter, as far as I understand it, this is a young homosexual man who was engaged in a sexual relationship with someone who either pretends to live as a woman or pretends to live as an animal, I guess. Like this, I think this is one of the dog suit guys, or
furry of some sort. Maybe
both. Maybe like dresses like a woman for class and then a dog to have gay sex. Someone who is into that. It does not seem crazy to me. That is also someone who would shoot Charlie Kirk. out of some sense of, righteous indignation or something like that. I mean, you're dealing with people who are insane, and unfortunately there are just a lot of them now. And so how crazy that is tends to lose its shock value because there's just, a million weirdos who are into stuff that's in that league of insanity. So I think it's entirely possible that this is a guy whose life was very far off track in terms of his, completely being untethered from any sense of reality or any type of meaningful moral compass. And so it is entirely plausible to me that this is just a young person who's mentally unwell who decided to shoot someone for, what I view as an unjustifiable reason. Everything that I've seen indicates that Charlie Kirk was mostly just a, respectful debate kind of personality. I have not seen anything from him that, is harsh or that I think is wrong. The response from everyone saying, "Oh yeah, this, that's what you get," or this guy was a horrible racist or a Nazi or something like that. I just don't think that was the case. I think, in hindsight, it seems to me that Charlie Kirk was, a patriot, a young father, a good Christian, and I think he had the correct vision for what the future of the country should be. And it was more emotionally impactful than I would have anticipated ahead of time. If you had told me before it happened, oh man, something's going to happen to Charlie Kirk, I probably just would have figured okay, well, stuff happens to people, and that's just not usually a good thing, that type of deal. But I mean, I was definitely affected by it more than I figured I would have been. I mean, it's a horrible thing that happened. It was obviously very graphic and broadcast in full HD in front of his family and that kind of thing. So, I was for sure shaken by it more than I thought I would be. And I think it's bad. And obviously there are some very serious problems that we have in this country right now, where, 50% of the country is basically not in touch with any semblance of humanity. And I don't mean in a corny UNICEF let's all just be humans bro way, but I mean that most people lack the critical thinking skills or the self-assessment or the moral uprightness to actually look at what happened and say, oh, that's bad. I do not want to live in a society where young fathers get executed in front of their family.
Yep.
And so that has been alarming. The percentage of people, and obviously a lot of people have pointed this out. It's if that had been me, if that had been you, if that had been half of the people on this side of Twitter or anything even close to it, people would be lining up to go, that's good. It's good thing that happened to that guy. And so pretty bad. And I also, it is annoying to me that everything devolves into some type of, real clickbait conspiracy type stuff, where people basically drive themselves insane trying to have, iteratively more and more deranged conspiracy theories about, someone doing this, or was it Israel, or was it secretly Trump, or was it, whatever. That seems, I don't know, largely unnecessary, and it also serves to kind of delegitimize things on the right wing broadly. So that's another negative outcome with it too.
One thing they're saying, can you raise your volume a bit? I pumped it up on my end for you. So if there's anything you can do.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, it sounded fine to me, but people are saying that. So, I by the way, I totally am fine with everything you've presented there. A few things that are interesting. It's it's so easy, and I listen to different people on the right. You have like your Daily Wire types, even Josh Hammer saying things here. Now I know he's in the mix, but his thing I think came about, and even the Israel stuff came along because Netanyahu immediately pushes a narrative that people behind the scenes were seeing that was not quite right. The problem is now that's muddied it up, and it's only allowed the people that say Israel's done this to now have more. The water's murky in a sense with that. I do have a problem with some of the. It's easy to describe him as exactly as you did, Tyler Robinson. He's a right winger. I mean, he was now he's sleeping with a furry, and it's a trans, and he was really corrupted at college, and so that's the right wing thing. It ticks all the boxes. My belief is that could very well be true, right? I mean, it doesn't seem far fetched. It is a bit much that I feel like the right is just so easy to pounce on that, as they would say. But to just fall in line with, see, there you are. It's exactly the caricature that we've portrayed this whole time. My hope with this trial and everything is that it is so that he gets really good attorneys, so all this stuff discoverable, and if it is him, that it's we're all confident it is, and it's not Kash Patel doing something behind the scenes. But what's your thought on and then we can move on from there. But any comment on that? I think
you cut out there for a moment.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear anything I presented? Or was it that bad? You there?
No, I think I was having internet connections maybe on my side for a moment.
No problem. We can move on from Charlie. I will say this about Charlie. I wasn't. Can you hear me okay now? Is everything back good? Oh, and Lee's gone. Man, we took Lee out in a brush. I hope everyone's here. We'll grab this. We'll look at some questions here. We had web TV before we could afford a computer in the late 90s. Hello, JC. JC's in there. That's my thing. Okay, well, we'll wait and see if Lee comes back and joins us. He had some internet problems. If not, is he back? Is he? There we go. There you go. Are you back with us? All right, we'll let Lee come back into. Oh, I see this thing is shaking. I can't hear you quite yet. Keep talking. There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I think my internet shit out on my side.
I think so. Or I was like, okay, he's putting his kids to bed. It just.
Yeah. No. I caught part of your question, but if you wouldn't mind.
I don't really even need to go back too much into there. My point is that it's such Tyler Robinson is such a caricature of how the right portrays anybody bad on the left. It's indoctrinated at college, even though he was an engineer and was there like a quarter. He's sleeping with a furry. It's all the great stuff. So it almost feels too good to be true, and it's just right in line. And the last thing I was saying is, I just really hope that he's alive. We're gonna have a trial on this. Hopefully, it's televised. It's in state court, so it should be, especially in Utah. So I'm hoping that the discovery, everything, it's just so obvious that it's him. And I feel like it's not a big question, because otherwise we're going to have to, keep going down this like JFK for years and years on it. Any comments on any of that?
Yeah, it's tough. There's like you're right that it does feel tidy, because a lot of people who are like on the far left are so easy to portray as caricatures, because that's quite literally how they live their lives, right?
Good point. Yeah,
they become an exaggerated facsimile of something that used to exist or is contrasted to something that actually exists. And that's kind of like, in this case, I mean, if you have like the transgender stuff, or you have the furry stuff, it is like a caricature, right? Like that is what's happening. I think obviously like the boomer line of like, yeah, man, the damn kid got radicalized at, one of them woke universities is, I agree to an extent that's cheesy. I think there are broader factors that drive that type of behavior. To an extent, I think maybe people use that as a way of absolving themselves of responsibility. Whereas, it's like, oh yeah, man, everything was fine on my end, but as soon as they stepped foot on a college campus, it's totally nothing I can do, and so I obviously there's a strong progressive bent at most public universities. It's been that way for a very long time. Not everyone who comes out of college is a libtard. Many people are, but many people are not. I don't view that as like the like a one step thing where it's like, oh yeah, a totally normal kid goes off to college, he's there for 20 minutes, and now he's a murderous libtard. The answer is more complex than that because there are more factors at work than just the university or the 4 or 5 people that he was interacting with most frequently or that kind of thing. Those are all contributing factors, and I think that is probably what will come out at trial, and through this process, like with discovery and that type of thing. But I don't know. I do. The Netanyahu stuff it's like almost funny because at a certain point you think that people would be able to get out of their own way, but obviously not. And so it is. I don't know. I just all the I think it was Candace Owens. Was she the one with like the mystery flight with like the tail number and or was that other people?
If you've got a tip, send it to tips@candaceowens.com. I think that's where someone got that. And so, she had the time, the UTM or something. She was like, oh, that's Utah time. She gets it and she reports it. That's all I can tell you, Lee.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some fantastic, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. The thing that's, look, let's say you or me, like you're more prominent. Something happened to you, and then suddenly you had peripheral, maybe the Tower Gang, right? They started saying Lee was all some way, and your friends are like, that's not who our man is. And so then they're going to release all kinds of, basically having to defend you. And I think that's what happened here was this pro-Israeli guard came out so hard because there's really 2 different issues. There's who murdered him. And then there's this Israeli thing that he was obviously having problems with. And now they've become conflated to the point where it's drama every day. And I'm kind of enjoying it, honestly, but it gets a bit much too.
Yeah. I think it's obviously TPUSA is a large organization and they are influential with the GOP-leaning conservative student base. And so anytime you have an organization that has influence, you're going to have Israeli interests who, want to be in on that, of course. I'm not saying that, that's not the case because it just factually that's, just how this stuff goes. But, whether it was like a secret Mossad operation with like a phantom plane flying through the desert and whatever, that's where it starts to lose me.
Right. Well, we'll bring you back when stuff comes about. We'll keep...
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe yeah.
Well, that's my thing. I'm just and by the way, it was actually somewhat emotional for me. If you go back, and I don't advise it, the day of when I found out this happened, I've told you I have older kids. There's 19 to 25, and there's 4 of them, and they're all were kind of affected by this, and so then you see people online that are instantly, and I don't care, make jokes all you want, but kind of like he deserved it and some of these other things. And there were actually people on our side, I would say, that were making some of the, like he wasn't Israel enough, so then, goddamn him, or, so, screw him or whatever it was. Or he was too pro-Israel, that's what it was. And I was just kind of affected by it too, because my kids are kind of like, what's going on? And I wouldn't push this on anybody. Gavin Newsom, who I hate out here, I don't want to see political assassinations. It's just have some humanity. So I went a little bit off on it as well. I totally get it. I will say this about Charlie after the fact was, like I was kind of with you on the initial stuff. He's not my wheelhouse. which is now all these things are all over on your feed. And he was very good, especially where where he was at, arguing with these kids, making agreements where they had common ground, making sure there was clarity, and then having really good knowledge of what he was talking about. And so I thought he did a good job. And I think he was exceptional. And that's why TPUSA is where it's at. And without him, they are going to be a hollow shell. That's my prediction. Any thoughts on that?
No, I don't. Seeing like the highlight reels and some of the stuff that, has been put together since then. I mean, I agree with your assessment. He was obviously like an exceptional young person, and I'm sure it was instrumental in building TPUSA. I don't know what their roster looks like as far as leadership or that kind of thing. And it is tough. It is difficult when you have a large organization and there's a lot of competing sentiment, a lot of competing interests. And even if you give everyone maximum benefit of the doubt and you say that everyone is working, in some type of alignment and in good faith, it's still difficult to have a well-run large organization when there's so much complexity involved, especially when it involves cultural dynamics and people skew on the younger side of things. So, I mean, I wish them success. Because I do, it's easy, and I've been guilty of this in the past, to just make fun of stuff like TPUSA as like kind of like a normie sphere thing, because that whole format of like, debate me, bro, and like change my mind and all that kind of stuff, like that's, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like low hanging fruit. It's algorithmically optimized. It's very sensational, and so it's easy to criticize, and I've done that. But I think to an extent, there was a pretty good turnout of like younger male voters going towards Trump. And I think TPUSA is definitely a factor in that. Obviously, Donald Trump is not the GOP, and the GOP does not like Donald Trump as far as like legacy GOP goes. That's its own separate conversation. So I don't mean to say that TPUSA has been great for like the GOP at large, but it was very it worked out very well for Donald Trump, which is good. And so my criticisms in the past against that format, they actually did something, as unlike me. And so I do wish them the best. I think that type of work where you actually have to go do normie stuff and interact face to face and have these types of public speaking events where everyone, kind of plays by the rules and that type of deal. Maybe that's not like the best TV for, guys like you or me to watch, but it obviously has a measurable effect. And I think it broadly moves the needle in the right direction. So I do wish them the best. I think it's a difficult circumstance to have a large organization that suddenly finds itself without like a top guy, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I would not want to see them end up as like a hollow shell, but even on a good day, there is a risk that'll happen.
Yeah, and then we'll move on here. It is I think it was a valid and a good idea to do what they're doing, especially going to all these lesser colleges. And I mean that, like, not the Ivy Leagues. It frustrates me to no end to hear, people complain about privileged kids and they're not having whether they're left or right. Now it's the Jews, I guess, that are not having the privileged Jewish kids at Harvard are getting, not having their safe space. And it's good. I think my premise, besides my anti-Semitism, is to really focus that this was to other colleges, like what we were talking about, the ones that most of our kids are actually going to and that are going to affect most of the world as far as like your daily life. Okay. I don't know if you want to make any comments about that, or we can go into AB 1127. Take it away.
Yeah. So AB 1127, that's California's latest assembly bill. It mostly this is it's caused a stir in the gun community, specifically relative to Glock. 1127 makes it doesn't go into effect until like mid 2026.
Yeah.
So the enforcement does not become effective until mid next year.
And then there's even a provision about testing, right? I don't know if you got into that.
Yeah. And so what 1127 does is it reclassifies striker-fired handguns that use a cruciform trigger bar as machine gun convertible. And that's a kind of long way of saying that Glock's trigger design, like the mechanical characteristics that are present in a Glock trigger, are being deemed too easy to convert to machine gun to be lawful for sale in California. It does not name Glock by brand, which is important. And it does not name any like specific models of Glock handguns or anything like that. It specifically takes issue with the trigger bar of Glock handguns, and it's like it's not necessarily the slimline models, but the traditional Glock guns, the 19s, the 17s, that type of thing. For any non like gun listeners or non Glock guys, Glock handguns, the trigger assembly has a design that's a little different from certain other manufacturers, and the trigger bar, the sear it has like a cruciform shaped, so it's shaped like a little T or like a little cross, and that's what catches like the striker, and it stops the gun from firing as a machine gun. It's very easy to override this with a Glock switch, which if anyone is like I am, a big fan of gangster rap involving pushing weight, I believe is the term. Anyone who's into gangster rap will understand the cultural significance of a Glock with the switch, which is that it takes a regular Glock off the shelf and you can convert it to a machine gun by purchasing a Glock switch off of wish.com and importing it directly from China through customs in California very easily. Alternatively, you can print one of these off with a 3D printer in your house for like a couple bucks, and then you're off to the races. So there's been a huge uptick in the cities that you might expect, where Glocks just get converted to machine guns because that's like the cool guy social status. Like if there is a Nissan Altima driving around in Chicago with illegal window tint, there's a very real chance that the Glock in the center console has an illegal switch on the back of it, which converts it to a machine gun. So this specific design of trigger is very easy to switch to a machine gun. It also happens to be a very good, very simple, very elegant trigger design that has worked well for decades. So California is saying, hey, look, this is too easy to turn into a machine gun. This specific design, this cruciform trigger bar on striker-fired handguns. And so in mid-2026, you will not be able to buy these new from dealers. They're still exempting private party transfers. They're still exempting, there are certain conditions, like if it's a gunsmith repair, or if the gun has been like modified and approved by Cali DOJ and like tested so that it's not convertible. So there's like a very small section of carve-outs. But for the most part, this will mean that Glock's commercial lifespan is ended in California, which forces action from the manufacturer, because if Glock loses California, that puts them in a pretty difficult situation in terms of finances. Like California is a huge gun market, and Glock has handguns that are on the California approved roster, and so if they lose that, it's not going to be good. It's also made worse by the fact that this is not the only action being taken against Glock. Like Maryland, New Jersey, Chicago, like the city, like Cook County, these entities all have similar lawsuits against Glock for the same reason. Some of them have different pretense for their litigation. California is saying that it's machine gun convertible, and so it's an unusual weapon. But other places are coming from, like Maryland is coming from like a public nuisance standpoint. So is Chicago, and so these are court cases that have not been thrown out. Glock has sought to have these dismissed. There's a federal law that exempts gun manufacturers for liability of criminal misuse of their products. So in the same way that, like, if you, like, let's say you just got here from India and you drink 6 bottles of whiskey and drive your 18-wheeler into an orphanage, in the same way that you can't sue Mack Truck for that problem because it's not their fault, their vehicle was criminally misused. Gun manufacturers in general have protection from that under federal law. But this gets worked against in progressive states because there are carve-outs in the federal law that don't make it like 100% airtight. And so if you can make a state-level exemption saying that like certain models of handguns or certain manufacturers or certain designs contribute knowingly to misuse or public nuisance or that type of thing, or that their marketing contributes to that, then those exemptions go away. And so that's where like Chicago, that's where Maryland are coming from. And so Glock finds itself in a pretty difficult position because its legacy design, its standard trigger system, is kind of a victim of its own success, and that it works out so well that it has a super high degree of like market saturation. It's very popular. It's probably Glock brand is pretty consistently one of the, if not the most popular handguns that manufacturers out there. And so they are suddenly at risk of not being able to keep up with business as usual. Like if they spend $1 zillion fighting a dozen different lawsuits at the same time, there's still a very high chance that they're going to lose even just one of those, which would, be catastrophic to their operation. And so this is a very narrowly tailored, like attack surface that the anti-gun crowd is coming after, but it seems to be pretty well crafted. I mean, you could probably speak more to that than I could. But what you will see is design changes from Glock, and they announced this kind of against their will because Glock store kind of leaked it on their Instagram story. But you'll see this from the Glock. They're going to be called the V model Glocks. So there's large discontinuations of their legacy models, and they will be pivoting to the V model Glocks basically to work around 1127 and these other lawsuits from states and municipalities.
A few items that caught my interest. So yeah, you talk about products liability cases as an example, civil suit against a gun manufacturer or anybody. It's like, because you can turn a car into a weapon and anything. So the premise there is the product being used as it was designed to be used. And, the guns that's why they have to have additional federal protection in a sense, was because, well, they are designed to shoot and kill, right? So, but legally or illegally, so that is somewhat of a distinction there. It also makes me wonder if it would be better for Glock to have this kind of issue where it forces them to change this design rather than a lawsuit, because this is not prospective. I mean, this is prospective. In other words, it's something that, okay, we'll change it and then it goes into effect and we can still sell guns. Whereas the other one would be, damages, and you can try to run them out of business if those lawsuits succeed. One question though is, and you can talk about those as well. So you mentioned other states. That's a good thing to know. Is it an effective method of actually turning it into a machine gun? And what made me think of this was the bump stocks, right? We had Cargill versus Garland, or Garland v. Cargill, where the bump stock went in there because they were changing the rules, and they basically, with Thomas's ruling said each motion still had to be a separate action, so therefore it was not a machine gun. Is that applicable to this at all? Or is this gun when you put this trigger?
Yeah, this is a true machine gun.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not like a workaround like the bump stock thing is, or like the like the binary triggers or anything like that. Like this, you know, it just keeps the sear depressed, and it just runs as long as you press the trigger down.
Okay, so it's legit machine gun style. Yeah. Have the Latino gangs taken a liking to this, or is it just ones driving the Maximas?
As far as I know, it's all of them. Yeah, yeah.
So what is your thought as far as like a lawsuit versus this law? I mean, you made one comment there, and this isn't my angle of law, but the first thing I'm thinking of is this law seems to be specific to just one person. Now it's one company, right? So maybe there's an equal protection claim against it. But what do you think about the future of this or a lawsuit versus this law?
Yeah. So in the case of 1127. They're very, very narrowly tailoring this to focus on the cruciform trigger bar, and 1127 also, in writing, exempts other types of handguns. So, like hammer-fired pistols, it just says this just doesn't apply to hammer-fired pistols. It also says it doesn't apply to other striker-fired guns that don't have a cruciform trigger bar, and so. And they're very careful not to name Glock in this. Now, Glock is not strictly speaking, they're not the only company that this would necessarily apply to. All of the Glock clones that are compatible with Gen 3 Glock triggers, of which there's no shortage out in the commercial market. There's a number of different companies that you can drop a Gen 3 Glock trigger into. Like Shadow Systems ships with the Glock trigger, of course. The PSA daggers, the Ruger RXMs. So there's a bunch of like Glock clone frames and stuff that you can buy. So this is obviously designed to target Glock, but there will be some bycatch with it that I'm not sure how that would factor in as far as any consideration of like equal protection. But I think they're very, very specific about the mechanical characteristics that they are targeting in AB 1127, and I think the thinking behind that is like, hey, we don't want this to fall victim to like. They have to show that this is like an unusual weapon, right? Like you have the Heller decision, which made the common use standard, where they basically said, hey, look, you don't like individual gun ownership is a personal right. You don't have to be affiliated with a militia, because historically you would have access to any commonly used, firearm, and so common use is a factor. When it comes to like legal scrutiny with firearm access. And so there's no question that like Glocks are commonly used because since, these have been for decades now extremely popular for civilian ownership, for law enforcement agency use. Like if you stumble upon a random handgun in America, there's like a pretty good chance it's going to be a Glock. So there's no question that it's a commonly used handgun, but the trigger design on the Glock is reasonably unique to Glock, and so California has to show that like this is a unusual weapon, like it's an uncommon, it's uncommonly dangerous relative to other handgun designs, in order to avoid running afoul of the Heller decision or of the Bruin decision. So they can't, and it's not like it's not a confiscation ban. Like they're not saying, okay, if you have a Glock, you have to turn it in or something like that. They're not doing any type of buyback or NFA like fuckery or anything like that. So it's just like the lightest touch possible. It's like, yeah, if your trigger bar has a cruciform design, that's just too easy to turn into a machine gun. And semantically they're right. Like a Glock is very easy to turn into a machine gun, and it is incredibly popular. Like it is true that there have been like exploding numbers of illegally modified Glocks recovered from crime scenes in places like California or Baltimore, Maryland, or Chicago, Illinois. So, like the argument is not frivolous. Like there is like a public safety consideration like that is bona fide. Now, how I would approach that, I obviously disagree with the gun control sentiment here. Like I would just say, just send people to jail if they, like it's pretty easy to me. It's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're at fucking high school with a Glock with a switch in your bag in gym class, then maybe you should go to jail. Like, that is to me the preferred approach. But it is true, like there is a legitimately large uptick in criminal activity with this specific type of modification. And everyone's going to hear that and go, oh, this guy fucking hates the Second Amendment. What the fuck, But you do have to admit the reality of the situation. Like that is the reality of it. And so if you're a court and you have to examine this based on the merits of the case, like they're not bullshitting when they say that this is a real problem for law enforcement, because it actually is. And so I think Glock just saying, yeah, fine, guess what, we're just going to do a redesign, is probably the smartest way to approach it, right? Like the odds of winning one lawsuit are not guaranteed, let alone winning a dozen of them. And because this case, like the 1127, because this is very narrowly tailored to not run afoul of like Heller or Bruin, you're not necessarily going to win that one free and clear in a higher court either. And so it will be faster and cheaper to make some type of basic change to the design of your trigger mechanism, and just keep doing business and basically nullify everything that's in the pipeline with this, than it will be to shed $1 billion in civil fines and legal fees and fucking go bankrupt.
Yeah, and so get yours now. It kind of is what you're saying. And by the way, so if they change the design, and just so you know, people out there, it's not an admission of guilt. So if you have a broken step as an example and you fix it, and someone had tripped, it doesn't mean that you are admitting guilt. You're taking remedies you got to do to make sure something doesn't happen again. And it wouldn't necessarily be used against them in those other cases. Plus, if it would be, they could just say, hey, there's this law here in California. We've decided it's a big market. We're just deciding to make changes completely for that. So, so that'll be interesting. I personally would like to see, for something like that they at least, or someone bring, and it'd have to be them, I guess, because they're that have standing, bring a case against California just to see what would happen. Now, for once, California writes a law, whether we like it or not, that was, as you said, narrowly tailored to actually fit these cases, Heller and Bruin, that are, basically the ruling on this. So, because typically they'll just write shit out here. I'm in California, so it's crazy time out here. But that's interesting. Any predictions? I did want to play this clip here. Let's go here. This is I don't know if you care about these people or not. This is let's see if I can find this here. Sorry. Okay, this is Brandon Herrera. Making a comment about this with Josie. So let's play this here.
From what I've been able to figure out is because of all the lawsuits from like multiple different states, is Glock is now apparently pulling their Gen 5 line, and they're only doing like the Glock V thing. I think I think that's what the designation that they're giving it. But basically, it just has a denial for the switches, which, in my opinion, a semi-automatic weapon is just a machine gun that's broken and wanting to be fixed. There's just going to be a different type of switch. Like it's not going to work on any of the off the street, like fucking wish.com Fed trap switches. But like I'll put it on the line. I'll put $100 cash on the line that if we get our hands on the new Glock Model V, within 2 weeks, we can build a switch for it. We can convert it full auto. Like, it's not fucking hard. Pretty much any semi-auto can be converted to a full auto with enough time and a Dremel.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about that? First of all, is that a little too fetty, or what do you think of that?
No, I mean, I think he's pretty good chance of being correct. Now, the Glock design, I mean, it is very easy to convert, and other designs are less so. And, you know, to my awareness, Glock hasn't released any type of schematic or anything for the V model trigger changes. So, you know, we'll wait and see what that looks like. However, you know, my guess is that he's probably right, especially because this is going to be taken as a challenge by everyone who has, you know, access to a 3D printer and CAD software. Like this, this is basically like putting up the bat signal for every single guy who has Asperger's syndrome in a 3D printer, that he's like, someone's going to figure out how to defeat the V model immediately, and that's fine. That's okay, like, because that, one, like, cool, good. Two, it probably won't matter as far as Glock is concerned. You know, I think, like, I don't, you know, I don't work for Glock, so I'm not speaking for them or anything. I would assume that these changes are designed so that they can, you know, get out of this situation that they're in terms of lawfare. They need to be able to take all these lawsuits and laws like AB 1127 and basically just sidestep them. So in the same way that Glock is going to, you know, engineer a small workaround so that everything else here is nullified, you know, a week later, some guy in his garage, like you know, Mr. Herrera said, someone with a Dremel tool and a set of calipers is going to figure out a way to defeat this. And so, and that's fine, because it, you know, that will still be a win for Glock, and it will still be a win for the broader home gunsmithing community. So, you know, I think he's probably correct, but we'll see. It is not as easy with other designs. It's not. You know, there's a reason that there's not like a switch for every brand that's out there.
So you make a question comes to mind, which is, and I don't know this part of the law very well. So what about the ease of being it? Because it's like, hey, anything can be done with these. Okay, well, if any time you can convert this, and it just maybe a Dremel tool, or you just get a little switch, is the problem that how easy it is, or the fact that it can be done? Because if it can be done, then it's always going to be.
Yeah, the ease is Glock's problem from a legal standpoint, because that's where they're getting around PLCAA. Like PLC, that's the Protection for Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. That's what says gun manufacturers, you know, don't have to worry about criminal misuse of their product. However, if your product is, like, you know, conspicuously simple to turn into a machine gun, and yours is largely the only product that's in its, you know, class that's like that, and it has been brought to your attention, and you can continue marketing your product without any changes, like, that's the public nuisance angle that you know, Maryland and Cook County and things like that are able to play. And so yeah, like, the ease of which the like standard, like, Gen 3 Glock 19 or 17 can be converted into a machine gun, it is much easier than it is to, like, convert, like, a Browning high power to a machine gun or something like that. Both of those things can be done, but one of them is done rarely and one of them is done all over the place.
Is there any case law or just anything that would say, because this sounds very subjective, so what's easy or minimal, you know, is there anything that
yeah, the
standard
the
for
ATF
that?
The ATF is always really squirrely about this, and they always
probably
issue,
intentionally,
like, yeah, they always issue very subjective guidance where they say that it's, like, reasonably easy or reasonably simple to convert or something like that. And if you ask them what it means, they come up with nothing. They recently did this with like 80% lowers, where they tried to reclassify unfinished blocks of aluminum as firearm receivers, with the argument that it's reasonably simple to convert. It's like, yeah, if you have access to like a vise, a metal cutting router, like it's not that easy, right? Like it's not as easy as like changing the chain on a bicycle or something. Like, but they will issue very subjective guidance that where they just say, well, if we think it's easy, then boom, that's a firearm, or boom, that's a machine gun, or boom, that's a illegal suppressor, or something like that. And because it's a game of chicken, because it's like, look, man, the only way to get them to really give you an answer is to let them do a pre-dawn raid on your house. And then you will go bankrupt, and you will spend the next 3 years in court losing all of your money and friends, and leaving it into the hands of like an in-bank panel of a California circuit. And so it's just not a good risk. They just say like, hey, if this is too easy, we're going to say it's too easy. And if you feel froggy, then you can jump. That's kind of the implicit use of force that they rely on.
I had a client that he came to me. He was in prison, federal prison, and I was dealing with his divorce. But he was there because he had a machine shop, and he was, 80%. He was doing too much, and they caught him for that. So he spent some time. Last thing we'll go to is, and we'll just knock it out real quick here. You had written also a piece about open carry in Florida. There was a new ruling there. One thing I would say that I found interesting, just kind of looking through this, is the 14th Amendment and substantive due process. There's all these. They have different tiers of scrutiny, and fundamental rights are what you consider, First Amendment and whatnot. Second Amendment is not considered a fundamental right, so therefore they don't use heightened scrutiny. They only use intermediate scrutiny, and then that got overturned with Bruin. And I thought you wrote, people I would suggest to go there to NBlock Press and read about that. It's puts out there in a nice, easy way to learn about that. But Bruin has changed some things here, and this is one. I've only seen what I think is positive aspects from Bruin coming down the pike as far as changing laws. So what's your thought on, first of all, Bruin's changes, and then the open carry status that you guys have there in Florida?
Yeah, I think Bruin has been a win. That's definitely, I think, pretty much all upside. Even the only times I've seen people try to work against it is you'll get like some shit lib judge. When it comes to like illegal aliens who get caught with guns, they'll say, well, historically there's been no law against this. And so,
did you look into that case, by the way? The one in Chicago? I think it was Chicago.
Yeah, initially, but not recently.
Because I did, and I didn't have a problem with that ruling. First of all, the guy got a gun. Now, they said illegally because he was concerned about the BLM riots. I'm like, this is one of our guys. So anyway, continue on.
Yeah, that's the only, basically the only argument where I've seen, anything kind of squirrely with it. But otherwise, between Bruin and Heller, these are, I mean, they're a decade apart, but it's pretty much back-to-back wins. People like to black pill about politics, but one of the few areas where there are consistent wins is two-way stuff. Like there are more states than ever that have like constitutional carry, open carry. I mean, things obviously aren't perfect. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. There's still states with like assault weapons bans and things like that. But overall, gun cases, like if you're gonna win on like a right-wing issue, guns are the place to be, because that's and not just in like the Trump years, but I mean spanning decades. Like it's one of the few things in I hate to use the term conservative, but it's like one of the few things in conservative politics that's actually had better outcomes over time instead of worse outcomes. So Bruin and Heller is emblematic of that. and so I think it's been good. The open carry in Florida, that's cool. Open carry, that's fine. We'll see. Florida's a wild place. So.
By the way, so yes, we're all, you like the 2A, less restriction, but then there is that, I don't know about cringe, but it's the LARPing type, right? Well, I'm going to do it because I can. And what do you what's your thought there?
Yeah. Like, I do not open carry in the same way. Like, I don't know, man. I agree with you. It can be cringe. Not all the time. Like obviously rule number 1 is always look cool, right? But a lot of people who are going to be doing open carry for probably the first time in their lives, they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're going to be, and there are, guys who are fat wearing like Uncle Mike's holsters, like no retention, no gun belt, with like
the bandoleros across the.
Yeah, it's just, if you're gonna do it, you gotta look cool. That's like a prereq, and so there are a lot of people who don't know how to do that. But my hope is that they can get there. I'm an optimist. I'm a romantic. I think they could eventually learn how to look cool when they're open carrying. At least that's my hope. But yeah, you're right. It is entirely possible to do this in a cringe manner. And from the limited amount of open carry that I've seen so far, that is largely what's going on.
Well, that's interesting. I grew up in the Northwest, and gun racks in the back of people's trucks was commonplace. So yeah, make it cool. I mean, I don't know if that was cool, your can of skull and your gun rack and whatnot, but make it cool again.
Yeah, the gun rack is cool. Like having a rifle in the window of your pickup truck.
Yeah.
That is an American aesthetic. Like, that is cool. I would really love to see that make a comeback. Like, they don't make trucks that are cool enough at this point usually to warrant that type of aesthetic. But I don't think it's cool. Like, if your holster is made out of nylon, it's not cool. If your gun, like if this is made in like Brazil or Turkey, it's not cool.
This is your next post. You need help us out. Make a post about cool, not cool, some categories, all that stuff. I think that's.
Yeah, I probably need to, because there's just, people don't know how to actually do this, and so it's usually just like a sweaty fat guy with like his pants sagging down because he doesn't know about gun belts or retention holsters, and yeah, I probably should get on that.
Yeah, you get on that. All right. Well, Lee, I appreciate it coming in here. Is there anything else you want to push or mention before we head out?
No, I think I'm good.
I appreciate it. Everybody go check Lee out as always, in Block Press. And then where can they find you at on Twitter? And I'll link your stuff in the show notes here.
Yeah, on Twitter at ShortMagSMLE.
There you go. Thanks, Lee. And thanks, everybody. Come back to us on Friday. Don't forget to subscribe and subscribe to Lee's stuff and get him some more money. His kids are young. They can use it. Appreciate it. Here's the outro. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I'm leaving now, guys.
But she's back.
Tyler, if you had any clout about you, if you had any knowledge of the real world of what happens, we walk into Tim Katz's studio, immediately there's 4 Jewish lawyers.
King of the Druids!
Oh, that's all we needed. A Jewish princess.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't expect the normies like Tyler to understand these kind of things. He's just a podunk lawyer somewhere in rural California. He's an idiot, really.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. And I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
This guy's, I wouldn't say he's full of shit, but I'd say he's stupid. Whatever, if you're in the comments, if you're in the chat now, I wouldn't pay attention to anything he says anyway. But
more or less, eat shit and die.
Don't ever come to the top left. He will end you. Do you see what he just did to Tyler?
Just fucking challenge this.
Yeah, Tyler's done.
Top is a
He can't even-
maniac.
He can't even reply right now because he's crippled.
He's
'Cause
got
he fell
nothing
off
to
his
say.
bike.
What are you talking about? I didn't say that. Why don't you argue with something I said, you dumb bastard?